Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by two friends who love cinema. Tonight, you'll be staying in room 173, Past Lives, the directorial debut from Celine Song. So go ahead, get comfortable, and throw on that Do Not Disturb sign as we follow a 24-year love story with Past Lives.
Childhood sweethearts, you connect only to realize they were meant for each other.
He was just this kid in my head. I think I just missed him.
Did he miss you?
What's going on, all my past listeners? And thank you for checking back into the Grand Cinema Hotel. As always, I'm your host, Gus, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alvaro.
What's up, guys?
And while we have you here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, it helps out the show a lot. We're back after another small period of time off. Well, not expected once again, but I did feel like we saw a lot of movies in this time period. So, even though we had the time off, we're here to report on quite a few films today. But the main one is Celine Song's debut, Past Lives. Alvaro, you've seen this film twice now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you walk out of this film?
I think that's what hits the most about this film. I feel like there's a lot of my favorite movies that I've watched in recent years and that are on my top films are a lot of what if movies, and especially tend to be love movies. And I don't know if when I describe to people that I like watching movies, if that's the genre I really spotlight, that's one of my favorites. But this just really adds itself to that type of movie. And how I feel at the end of this movie when I walk out, I think is why I like it so much. It's the king of like what ifs, and frustrated, but also very and relatable, which I think a lot of people is what resonates with them with this movie.
Just to name a few, like Paris, Texas, this movie, Past Lives, Decision to Leave, In the Mood for Love. I mean,
Fallen Angels.
Fallen Angels. So you have quite a few of these movies, right? Where these are big tent poles in your cinephile file, right? Like if you wanted someone to know what you liked, these would be there, right?
Yeah, like the Before, series.
Oh yeah, or the Sunset, the Richard Linklater.
Before Sunrise, before So I mean, like I said, it's not something like we usually talk about sci-fi or horror, but that tends to be a very close third. And I don't know if
you just tell people you like The Thing as a protective barrier.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa, I'm edgy. I like The Thing, man.
But it's really stuff like this,
Oh man. This was definitely the best movie we saw recently, right? I mean, we'll get to those later, but this is the one we felt we had to base the episode around. So you're getting kind of a room/lobby talk, which is something we haven't really done before. But I felt like now is a good time to do it just because the movies are coming out and we're trying to get ahead of ourselves here, right? Like I know we're seeing Asteroid City this week. I'm gonna see Indiana Jones. We're thinking about Mission Impossible. I want to rewatch all of the Mission Impossible movies. Yeah. So it's getting kind of hectic right now in the summertime. I still haven't seen Transformers yet.
Yeah.
I'm in that mood where I'm just ready to consume, and there's just not enough time in the day.
If you're this far,
there's not even enough time to pod about it sometimes,
Yeah, if you're this far in, they're like, he hasn't mentioned one big movie, and we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Okay.
In time.
But I mean, it's been actually on a sidebar really interesting to go to the movies and see so many people. I know for this movie, Past Lives, in the small theater that we're at, it's usually more packed than even the movies we see when they come out that week. So I think this movie has word of mouth.
Yeah, definitely. I also think when you have, this wouldn't technically be, I don't think, a Korean film. Is it a Korean film? She's a Korean filmmaker.
Good
the
question.
Cast is Korean. It takes place in America and in Korea. It's kind of a hybrid, right?
Yeah,
I was going to say, and hope this doesn't sound weird or anything, but when I do go see either like a Korean movie or a Mexican movie or a movie that is made by black people, I do notice, a show out sometimes, right?
Yeah,
and then I'm
that's
like,
true.
okay, like this is like, yeah, I'm not surprised if I see, well, I guess what I would assume is Korean people or, just many different types of Asian people at these movies, because it's like, hey, time to go see the movie,
Yeah.
and it's something like this. I feel like no one was probably disappointed when they saw the movie, right? And the other thing that I thought was funny about our audience was that it was mostly couples and like older ladies, and then it was just me and you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
We look
hooligans.
we look like two Barstool employees or something like that compared to the rest of the people there, We were both wearing like little short shorts and t-shirts and legs all out in the movie theater, right? And there's just all these couples all cozied up to each other. I didn't know if anybody was crying or anything. I didn't actually see or hear that. The seats are kind of separated because they're like this recliner kind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, speaking on that theater experience, I really muffed it, man. I was like, oh, I'm going to get the tickets. This is actually leads to another story. On Sunday, I saw 2 movies, right? I took my wife and my daughter for the first time to the theater. That was one hell of an experience. I'll get to that later as well. But, I had to manipulate the A-list, right? So I had to cancel the past lives tickets that I had bought earlier in the week so I could go to the movies with them, and then 4.5 hours later go to the movies with you to see this. And even though it was a dine-in theater and even though it was kind of small, we were in the last row. And did it bug you at all, or did you notice that like glass banister was like cutting the subtitles in half? It was like half on the screen and half glass. I had to keep readjusting myself throughout the entire movie. I'd get a little too comfortable, and then, oh shit, I can't see the dialogue anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is a testament to the movie or not. I feel like Celine Song, even though this is her debut, she's a director who can really get her point across with not that many words. And it was annoying, but it wasn't something that took me out of the movie like it might with the... I don't know if someone had been laughing the entire time, or if you had been on your phone or something like that, right? Like it was an annoyance, but it was something that I could get past because the movie was so good.
I think it's like a level unlocked after you've done so many, like gotten over all the cinema, like when you go to the movies, like, yeah, loud person, or, the person coming to deliver the food getting by the projector.
Oh my
This was a new
goodness.
challenge unlocked. You know what I mean? But I had never sat in those theaters all the way in the back where that I had seen that. Yeah, the barrier, I think because I had seen the movie once already, it didn't bug me more. But I was like, for you, I was like, I wonder if because I'm shorter than you, so I thought it was a height thing. I thought I was laid back too much, and I was like, oh, he could probably still see over it.
I don't know if you noticed, I kept like, you could hear the like from me moving my seat like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie.
Yeah, no, but it was a weird little obstacle.
I know. But hey, that's a good thing for a movie like this, right? That we got stuck in the back. That's, like you said, a very rare occurrence. I often think of when we saw Pearl or when we saw Sanctuary, because I think we saw them at the same theater. And
private screening.
Oh boy, yeah, basically a private screening.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because it's a romance movie. I don't know if it's an A24 movie. I don't know if it's because it's like a hybrid Korean American movie. But hey, they're showing out, and I even feel like we're seeing this movie kind of late, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've already seen it, but
it's
kind of late reporting, right?
Their rollout obviously always makes it feel like it's pretty late, but I think it's not as late as you would think. I think this movie is gaining traction because it's finally being rolled out to general theaters.
So I think that it's gonna have like a slow increase week by week, even though the theater and the show times are gonna go down and down, right? But we're also in this weird period right now where until Mission Impossible, I think we're still going to have a chance to see this for a few more weeks. So if you haven't seen it yet, or if you live somewhere where it hasn't come out yet, I do think in the next 2 weeks before Mission Impossible, you're really going to, like, that's going to be the time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all, I mean, only, other than Asteroid City, there isn't really a movie that is kind of similar in scale. So I do think that this movie is going to have a little bit of legs on it, not too much because it is about to come up against Mission Impossible and Oppenheimer and Barbie, and then it's gonna be like, hey, there's only 2 movies showing at the theater in all 20 auditoriums. But this is why we're here to champion a movie like this now. It's like, get it while you can, and if not, I'm sure you're gonna see it on VOD. But it is what it is, right?
Yes. This kind of segues into something I wanted to bring up because we talked about previous episodes, A24 kind of shelving some movies already in VOD that you've never heard of, and this is kind of where you trust, I guess, their marketing, because this was a movie that has been marketed, but maybe not because of its own, the type of movie that it is very subliminal, right?
Yeah. So I saw this trailer quite a bit, and I know you must have seen it more. And anytime you saw anything that was mid-budget or indie over the past few months, you were seeing this trailer. I think I've even seen posters for it at the 2 AMCs that we frequent. I do think that the word of mouth from critics has really been carrying this like slow momentum wave that we have going on, because they're their best movie of the year, the film I've been waiting for all year. It's getting a lot of really high praise, and I guess we can kind of get out of the way now. I think it's a very good movie. So far, I'd probably say it's in my top 5, but it's definitely not my favorite movie of the year. I'm still waiting for that. At the moment, John Wick is in its little placeholder, but we'll see, But I do think you probably liked this film a little bit more than I did.
I think it's funny it's in my top 5 too, but it's 5. So it's probably sits the same place as yours.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I would do, if I really had to think about it, I guess I would say maybe 3 or 4, like maybe not 5.
Or 4,
but
yeah.
I think it's because I would probably give it that edge, because I just know it's a overall better experience than like Creed 3. If I had to pick a movie to champion, I'm sorry, Creed 3, I love you, but you don't need the help.
It's actually 3 on mine right now, but yeah, see, 5 was a little crazy, but yeah, it's
got a lot of time for us too, and many others who are going to be making lists at the end of the year to kind of simmer and really. I know I'm going to watch this more than once, and you've already seen it twice, so you'll probably see it like maybe 3 or 4 times before the year ends, right?
Yeah, especially because this is obviously getting more into it. The runtime isn't very long.
No, this is one of those ones where my wife was like, "You're back already?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, "Yes, sir."
Ideal.
I know, that's my favorite. Where I'm like, "Yes." A quick 2, right? It was really only I was only gone like 2.5 hours, and it was because of the trailers and
we got there a little early
the
too.
Commute, Yeah, we were even early. When does that ever happen, right?
Hardly ever.
So getting into the movie a bit and getting into the director a bit, because we haven't really got there yet. Celine Song, this is her debut. She's known more as a playwright. She's done something called Endlings. I don't know if that's an original play or not, but the one that really got me interested in, or once I was looking into her for this, was that she did Chekhov's The Seagull, right? So now whenever I think of Chekhov, I'm like, oh, okay, Drive My Car. And then what was the other one? There was another thing we watched after Drive My Car that was also Chekhov.
It was also
We're probably
the Korean movie. It's also the Korean movie.
Oh, it was Decision to Leave.
Yeah,
right?
they brought out Chekhov too.
Well, this is the interesting twist though. Is that Celine Song did this during COVID, right? So like right in the middle of COVID in 2020, and I'm sure you're wondering like how, right? She did it through the game The Sims 4 on Twitch. They did the whole play like through gameplay of The Sims.
That's I like that.
And I don't know, because I didn't have time to watch it, and I don't even know if I would, how good this thing is. But I love that a director would take a chance like that, of like,
that's really cool.
I don't know. What if Rian Johnson had made Knives Out, or Glass Onion as Among Us? You know what I mean? It gave me heavy Red versus Blue vibes too, right?
Yeah,
like the Halo stuff back in the day.
Yeah, Red versus Blue.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I just I think that's probably one of the more interesting side projects I've heard of a director doing in quite a long time, honestly.
Yeah, that's it. That's really cool.
Other than Quentin Tarantino's conversation with himself that we talked about, I think like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
That's unhinged. This is really creative. I'm glad that you said that. I didn't know that. I mean, I think that kind of is the reason this movie feels really good. Like you said, a really, really good film up there, because there's a maturity to this film that doesn't really seem like it's from a director who hasn't been doing it for a long time. There's an emotional tone that this movie carries with itself the whole time that I think interests you. Sometimes people can complain about slow movies, but I think these are the kind of slow movies that we talk about that seem to have are full and rich of so much emotional context in most of its scenes.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that you said that, because it brings me to a point I wanted to make, is that I don't think this is a spoiler or anything. I've seen it going around in interviews with Greta Lee, who's the star of this movie, by the way. We'll get to her in a little bit. But in an interview, she talked about how during the Skype calls, right? I believe they're using Skype or Zoom or whatever. They never knew if the camera was actually going to freeze or not. So a lot of this was, I wouldn't say improvised, but, it was caught on camera. And a lot of this is just real. I don't really know how else to really say it. But I wonder if doing that stuff over Twitch helped make that transition a little easier, to actually working with actors and not doing the Skype scenes, carrying so much of the movie, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. That's what you're saying.
By the time you hit an hour, you're like, whoa, hold on. Because I was very cognizant of the time. I was like, okay, this started at 4:50 and it's 6:50 and there's been a lot of Skype, And I'm like, okay, when are we going to get to the stuff that you mostly see in the trailers and things like that? But I wasn't disappointed at all. I wasn't taken aback. I was really just captivated by what I was seeing, and most of it taking place over a computer screen.
Yeah. And that's why it's very similar to, for example, Her, right? Where you're able to almost be impressed by being able to feel, as in most instances, it's a love emotion that somebody could carry through. Like, we complain about technology sometimes, and a lot of directors, it being hard to use technology to make movies now, but then you see somebody use it to its full potential, and it's very evident that it could be used as a tool just as anything else, and this movie kind of shows that off.
Yeah, that's true. I like that you said that, because that was a big thing going around recently on film Twitter, at least, about how most of if you had to say the top 10, 20 most famous directors, at least in Hollywood, most of them do not do movies that are set in current times and have never even bothered sniffing it. I think they said Steven Spielberg, the last time he made a current movie was almost 20 years ago. I think it was, I don't know if I'm mistaken, but probably Jurassic Park, because that takes place in current day, but it's Paul Thomas Anderson hadn't done one since, I believe, Magnolia. Quentin Tarantino, I want to say probably Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
right?
seriously, where it's right.
Or I guess Jackie Brown, right? But, and I don't know, Kill Bill takes place in some alternate universe, right?
Nolan, The Dark Knight, maybe?
Yeah, right? So many of these directors are not working with tech. They kind of just, okay, let's make another movie about the 70s, right?
No cell phones.
Yeah, no cell phones. Cell phones, you can't make drama with cell phones. And here comes Celine's song, right? Yeah, you can, right? You can actually make something that is truly captivating, emotionally really heavy, right? And also using this new tech to tell a story in a way that you honestly couldn't 20 years ago, 25 years. Well, maybe older than that. I don't know how old video chat is.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to go 25 plus, right?
Yeah, that's what
These are sci-fi concepts, dude. These are things Stanley Kubrick thought of in 2001. What if they could video call, right?
And they're doing it now.
And they're doing it.
Now it's even seen as gimmicky because they're using Skype, and that's what I found really interesting in a technological side here, is that they really aged what they would have been using when they talked about 12 years before the story took place to the old MacBook Air. You know what I mean?
I don't know if they use WhatsApp in Korea, right? But if you're Latino and you have family, you know about WhatsApp, right? So I was like, where's WhatsApp?
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm saying the 12 years, and then after that, they're just using email. But it is, that is another interesting part of this movie that I think always resonates with us, obviously, is like people immigrating to either places and distance being the obstacle of love. That's always something that I think it really delivers for me, especially as somebody who likes these type of films, because it's one of the hardest obstacles, I guess, within someone when you think you're meant to be with somebody. So it's very interesting that in this movie there's a lot of places where you think this is going to happen and then it doesn't happen over, those are the reasons I guess I get frustrated with the movie, because the main character has her decisions for her own reasons that I understand, but it's always, as the movie watcher, you're like, no, it's not supposed to go down this way,
Yeah.
And
so let's get to the cast, because it's not a big one and they do a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Greta Lee. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Teo Yu and John Magaro, who I got to say I've just never really been a fan of, right? And even after I had seen Past Lives, I mean, I don't even know if I think he's giving a wonderful performance or not. He plays it exactly how I feel it was written, right?
Mm-hmm.
He, much like how I feel about him as an actor in this movie, he didn't technically do anything wrong. I just don't like him, right? But enough about him, honestly, because he is the third character here. Greta Lee, this is really her big breakout role. A place that you and I would know her from, and I actually did remember this before looking it up, is that she was on What We Do in the Shadows, right? Do you remember the episode where Guillermo's like talking to the other, what are they called? The familiars? And she's like, yeah, she made me a vampire, and she's smoking the vape blood. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That's her.
Yeah.
So she has been in a ton of comedy stuff and a ton of TV shows. She's had... Let me see here. I looked it up earlier, but I want to make sure I have it right. Oh, in Spider-Verse, she is Miguel O'Hara's AI assistant, right? So that's the last
Voice,
thing we saw her
yeah.
in, The Voice. But she was in a movie with Bill Murray called St. Vincent. She's going to be in Problemista, which is what me and you are waiting to be our favorite movie of the year,
Let's go.
Right? She was in Russian Dolls, so like that show a couple years ago on Netflix with Natasha Lyonne that has
That was
really kind of like a Past Lives, right? Because
yeah.
anyways, if you've seen it, so she's been slowly picking away, and I think she's like the perfect A24 like movie star, I guess, right? It's someone who in comedy, in TV shows, kind of just bouncing around, and then here comes A24, here comes Celine Song, right? Not that this is the order of how it went or even how it goes, but what I'm trying to say is that she fits the mold perfectly for the kind of person that they make a star, where I feel like in 2-3 years, I mean, look, she's going to be in Problemista, right? We're assuming she's going to have 2 really good movies under her belt by the end of the year, right?
Exactly.
And it's almost like that, kind of like the pipeline that like Hong Chow is going through right now, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like The Menu, The Whale, and then she's going to be in a couple of other things. Or, well, she's in Asteroid City, I believe, right?
Yeah, she is.
So, there's a certain pathway that like when you go through A24 to get your big break, that kind of like a web is formed from there, right? And I think she slots in perfectly to it. As for our male lead, Teo Yu, I hope I'm getting that right.
Yeah. He is in Decision to Leave too.
He's in Decision to Leave, really?
Yeah.
Really? Do you remember who he is? Is he like a detective?
He's like one in the like an assistant to one of the cops.
To one of the cops.
Yeah, so he does not like anything.
Yeah, not gonna lie here. When we do watch Korean movies, it's not like I've seen enough to be like, oh, that's the guy from that. Like it's only if it's the the main character.
Hey, I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I'm not the one.
You didn't catch me. Like, oh, I'm unfamiliar with this game. Huh.
Yeah, I don't recognize anybody.
Yeah.
I don't recognize.
Exactly. No. You're not getting me. Sorry. Not on my own show.
No, I only know because I looked up what movies he might have been in before, and I saw his name there. In Decision to, because this, sometimes they credit them where like you would know him from this movie. Decision to Leave is the only movie that's above this one.
Nice. But yes, you were right. Like that is true with any actor, honestly, from any other country that is not the United States. For me,
Nope.
I'm like, Oh, what else have you? What other like really famous movie have you been in? Like even if it was like a Canadian actor, I'd be like, have you been in a Cronenberg movie?
Yeah.
I don't know you, my G.
Exactly.
When I watched the Ruben Östlund. Oh, I recently watched Ruben Östlund's movie Force Majeure. Right, I think we talked about that on the last one. I was like, who are these guys? Right?
Yeah,
They were like,
exactly.
I maybe I've seen them before. The only person I had recognized was like, it's the guy from Game of Thrones, with the
Yep.
big red beard, you know. But I was like, okay.
Well, yeah, see, dude's lucky.
Anyways, can I take myself out of this? Can we move on?
But yeah, back to him. Obviously, because this movie's carried so much through two characters, I just think he does a really outstanding job here as well. I think there's so much. I think for him, a lot more of the time too, a lot of more like facial acting here, which we always really praise.
So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I do think that the way that the script is written is that, you know, Greta Lee's character, Nora, she's very outspoken, right? I mean, she's literally a writer. So she does. I want to say she does a lot of heavy lifting with the script, but then Teo Yu is doing all of the emotional lifting with the expressions, like you said, and the silent acting. And he says so much with so little, right? And I think he does such a fantastic job because you could just see like the agony in this dude's eyes, right? You're like, oh, I feel so bad for him, right? And you feel so bad for both of them because the more you get into the story and you see that this distance that is between them and all these years that have passed and just the way that their lives have played out, it's not due to any circumstance that could have really been prevented, right? Like the immigration from Korea to Canada, there's no reason why they're doing it, like as far as the audience, right?
Yeah.
It's mentioned in passing as kind of like we're immigrating, and they don't even say to Canada, right? And then the character who is on the receiving end of that news is kind of just like, well, why? You know what I mean? It's not, we don't get any kind of indication that it's due to financial struggle or hopes of a better opportunity, or we don't know any reason why it actually goes down. But I mean, when you're a kid, maybe the point of it was that when you're a kid, I remember when I first moved from my first apartment to the house that I grew up in, there was probably nothing my parents could have said that would have made it make sense to me, that it was just like, oh, we're going to go to a house. A house is better than an apartment. You know, like that was my home. I loved it there. So maybe that's kind of what Celine Song is going for, you know? It's like, oh, this is a story about children. It's not about the adults. So who cares why they immigrated?
Yeah.
Even though it plays such a huge part in both of their lives, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I guess a lot is indicated because the mother seems to feel guilty knowing that it's not going to be easy. And she says, I want her to have good memories, which is why they do the cute little date as teenagers, you know? Or even not even teenagers, probably. It seems like they're like tweens, as they would say.
Yeah, definitely like 13 years old,
Yeah.
I believe, the first time we see them, right?
Yeah.
The story structure is also interesting, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if I see it more like a play or like a book, or if it's just exactly how a movie script is meant to be written. But the way that Celine Song plays with time, the story takes place over 24 years, but she breaks it into 3 separate time periods. So it's almost like it's 36 years. You know,
This, you know, this kind of reminded me a little bit of, which is another movie that's in my pretty high up there, The Worst Person in the World.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of the timeline a little bit. And obviously that one gets a little bit more creative, but I think the way it's segmented, where it does feel like almost Decision to Leave, where it's like closer to a book or a play.
Yeah, and I just think that she really does a fantastic job with the story structure, because you're in it and it doesn't feel like it's going all over the place. It doesn't feel like it's dragging, and almost every single moment that she chooses to hone in on feels really important. Like those first 20 minutes or so of them just being children, and you see the bond that they have, and how you really, I mean, it's kind of a smart move, right? To put you in the character's shoes while they're children, to like really endear you to them. And it's not even like a romantic struggle, you know? Like, I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but it's a romance without being a romance, much like Decision to Leave, right? Like we were talking about movies like that earlier. But it's so heartbreaking because you know that it's there, right? And it's all of the unspoken, right? And to see it play out the way it does over these many, many years is just so enjoyable to watch, you know?
The longing, man. It's always the longing. It always gets you.
You should have went to the guy on TikTok, right? Here's what you got to do. Game is game.
Yeah, exactly.
What you want to do,
The out-of-town game.
Immigrate for 12 years. And just find her on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Going a little back to, obviously we were talking about the character of Yoteo, right?
Oh, Teo Yu.
Yeah, Teo Yu. Sorry. But I think she gets really well too, probably as being a Korean director here. Is that he carries a lot of the cultural weight too that it is to be a male Korean.
Mm-hmm. That's brought up many times.
And that's why she kind of says a lot throughout the movie that she feels more Korean when she's with him, you know. But we also, what I like about that is that we get a lot of his inside life with his friends, and it shows that he has friends that are really emotionally heartbroken too. But he's not like that. He is very what you would say people think of Korean males, and he, you know, did his military time like everybody else. And even then, in those scenes where it's not pertaining to the story directly between both of them, you could feel the longing that he's not even concentrated in battle.
Yeah, like he really is just kind of going through what is expected of him, like you said, like as a Korean male, right? So of course he's going to do his military service. Of course he's going to go to college and please his parents.
Have a really good job.
And try to get a really good job. But you can just see that he is almost like he's unhappy, not only in his love life or his lack thereof, but his just life in general, right?
Yeah, like just
you don't know, and it's never told to you if this is a guy who maybe had a creative dream or wanted to be an athlete or, you know, any of those, or, you know, just many, many different paths in life that anyone could go down other than just working in an office, right?
Yeah, it's like he just was your very standard, what you would see, like whatever the school system would want someone to come up as a Korean, a scholarly Korean, just going through being a nice, good citizen. You know what I mean? And I think what that really does for the movie is that it shows in all of the moments that he's there that it only seems that he's living to try to reconnect with her, and everything else is just kind of stuff that he feels he has to do.
You know what I thought was interesting about the way that she used him as a character in his like individual life is that the way that she played with time as well, right? And also the location hopping. I did feel like the movie got kind of worldly when he was in it, you know, because you're in Korea, you're in China, you're in you're in the military, you're in the these like small little gritty restaurants on the street, you know what I mean? And with Nora's character, even though she's the one who immigrated and really did go on this, I guess, worldly adventure, her life doesn't seem as exciting. I don't know. That's maybe how I took it. Like, I know he's not as happy as her, even though that's something we're going to get into in a little bit, is whether either of these characters are happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like he had more of an exciting life than she did, honestly.
I think, again, him being an outstanding Korean had really oriented him to try to be better at business, right? Which is why he had gone to China to try to learn that's his third language. Like him trying to be a better person, or him being culturally, you know, more knowledgeable was a obstacle, and the reason why they weren't. So like for him to care that much about those certain things just kind of showed what kind of person he was, which I think kind of accompanies what you're saying, because it just really comes off as he's a person that was more interested in maybe even just being better for her, like improving to be like, this is why you should be with me, or I'm worth being with, which is what I take it as, because it seems like his driving force for everything was her. Since he was since before we're on screen, because I mean, one of the first lines they talk about is how much time they've competed together in class. So they're both the two smartest kids. That's what they make it seem like. And I think as us being boys who at one age had, when we were at that age, had a really big crush on somebody.
We're boys.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, man.
had the crush on somebody at that age, that's what your little kid you would think was going to happen. And so I think maybe for that to actually be something that was still probable for him is a driving force that I think is very, in synchrony with love. Like, well, that's what love makes you do.
So I wanted to talk about our two characters here and the paths that their lives go down, and if either of them really has a reason to be unhappy. Like, I know it's a movie, right? But they're both living pretty good lives, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it such a heartbreaking movie, is it's not like these are two people who really need each other and are at the lowest moments of, one's not about to unalive themselves while the other is getting beaten. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it's not the worst scenario in the world for either of them. It's just so heartbreaking, I guess, because it's like what could have been. And I guess maybe for someone like me, who is not really a what could have been type of person, that doesn't affect me at all when I watch a movie. Right?
No,
I'm
yeah,
never
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, this person, why did they simply get over it?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, no,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? But I was just like, wow, this is heartbreaking, And of course, a movie got me to feel that way, because I don't know, if someone had told me this story, like, oh, I broke up with my internet girlfriend that I haven't seen, and told me, like, all right, bro, can you like not, close your laptop, let's go. But yeah, I just kind of was, when I was watching the movie, thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, like, this is what they mean about those people who are just like content in life, but they're not actually happy, right? But because these two characters separated when they were kids, who the hell knows? It's just this unhappiness with the who knows.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's literally like an alternate reality and everything, everywhere, all at once, right? Like, oh, what if we had stayed together? Like, I don't know. Maybe we just would have broken up, and then I would have never moved to Canada, and you wouldn't have become an engineer or whatever.
Those are all the what ifs, like you said, and I think those are real roots of what a lot of people's lives are and end up being. A lot of people's like romantic connections sometimes, and this kind of goes obviously off topic from the movie, but people stay with people in the worst of situations or in the weirdest of situations because they think these tribulations are worth going through because the person is worth it, So I think this movie kind of shows that that's at least how he feels about her, that all these are just kind of obstacles that are in the way. And I think when they meet 12 years later after they haven't seen each other for a long time, and how, visibly different they become as people when they become involved with each other, obviously shows what you're saying. Like, what is the question here? Like, obviously it's there, the love is there, but I think there's all these other complicated emotions to life that kind of become barriers, and I think that's all very relatable to, maybe you're not in this situation, but you've felt it to some degree.
Hey, he really just would have enjoyed doing laundry and taxes with her, right?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I kept thinking about that scene throughout the entire movie, right?
He's like, come on.
Yeah, just do laundry and taxes with me.
Yeah. But I mean, there's I think a very important other part that I know we would always get to, but the movie emotionally has a lot of that resonance, but I think the cinematography here is a lot that carries.
Oh, yeah, it's a
stuff
beautiful
here.
movie.
Yeah.
New York is a character. Huh.
I think, yeah, like it gets that really well. There's just some shots where I looked over at you, like those night shots on film that look insane.
Oh, it's
right?
it's just gorgeous. I was wondering if Celine Song, her name had actually been kind of popular over the past year because of this movie. So I was like, who is she? Is she a fashion designer? Is she a music video director? Like, I was just wondering who she was. And I don't know, her like aura was kind of building up in my head, where I was just kind of like, of course this movie's beautiful, right? But this is the first time director. So I don't know, man. I don't know what kind of pull she had on Twitter or whatever, where everyone just kind of collectively decided like this is the one that
She's
we're hyping, right? But she didn't disappoint, and I don't have the cinematographer's name in front of me, but I could pull it up.
It's Shabir Kirchner.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's exactly how you say it, right?
Yeah.
But that person did a fantastic job shooting not only New York but Korea, China.
The Canadian residency place when
No, that's in New York.
Oh, it's in New York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only Canada shot you see is an elementary school or I
The
don't know,
airport,
a
right?
primary school, right? I'm sure they don't call it elementary.
Yeah. Losers.
It's primary, don't you know? Do you want to talk about how this movie ends? I feel like we are at that point where we could definitely do a spoiler if we feel like it, or do you feel satisfied and want to move on?
How do we go? I mean, I think some of the stuff.
You can't talk about the ending of the movie without just spoiling the whole thing. That's why it's impossible.
I do think. I guess I have a little thing to talk about before that. I mean, I'm in agreement that we could spoil a little bit, and at the end.
You go ahead.
But I was gonna say, because even though we don't like him this much in this movie, but Arthur at one point in the middle of this movie does play a big role in terms of him realizing as a character
That's
that
John Magaro, by the way.
that he is going up against like this story that even to him doesn't make sense why she wouldn't be with him, and obviously as somebody he loves her, is having a hard time with that, but it becomes this interesting like pull for her, at least I think that
I do think she genuinely loves him too.
yeah, that's the thing, is like where you're fighting with the what if, and the what if is so strong, but what you can't leave the thing that is definite. And he's like, obviously we've talked a lot of shit about the character, but he has done nothing wrong, and he's a great husband to her, and I think she values that very much.
And a very, very, very
understanding.
Well, not just understanding, but secure with his masculinity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To potentially just offer the cucking, just like, go ahead, see him. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. What am I gonna tell you not to see him?
Yeah.
Look at the big balls on Arthur Sadaransky.
Yeah, he's like, yeah.
He said, take my girl, you won't.
I'm not worried.
Yeah.
So that dynamic does, I think, there's a very tense bar scene where it seems like he's feeling left out, but
he is left out. He's not feeling left out. He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just kind of again really puts you in the mind frame of the what if is just as strong to her as what is in front of her. And that's a very complicated place to be. I mean, that would be so emotionally. I don't, and that's, we can get to the end obviously, because I think the end of the movie, as the audience, how you feel, but then the character, obviously, that's the point of watching the movie, is that the character sometimes ends up having different emotional reception to whatever's going on, or they'll have the decision that you didn't think. You're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But here, you didn't know where this was going. And even at the end, you're kind of expecting what they're going to say to each other to be maybe this crazy stuff, or, then another old Hollywood movie, like they're going to run together and kiss, and leave in the taxi and then never look back. So you're expecting these certain things, but what ends up happening, I think, is just delivers so much more on putting the bow on this movie as to be comparable to like a play or a book.
Definitely. I mean, do you want to just should we just spoil it from here then?
Yeah.
Okay, so, after this visit, they realize that this can not be more than what it's been always, which is just this distance between them and them being friends, right? But she's in a beautiful, happy marriage, and maybe in another movie, like you're saying, it would be right for them to run away together, but they've never dated. They don't know each other really. There's just no realistic world where this could happen. And that's what makes it so damn heartbreaking, is that it feels like it's supposed to happen. And there's no indication that any of this would even work, you know? And like, I think that's what makes it so sad. And that's what makes it such a movie premise, right? Because if you're, I don't know, the girl you had a crush on when you were 11 years old walked back into your life, I don't think for a second you'd be like, oh shit, here we go. It's about to, here we go. We're going to start dating, right?
No,
like, we missed out, dude. Remember when we missed out in third grade? Like, that just doesn't happen, right? And just, even though the movie's called Past Lives, I didn't expect it to be such a nostalgic movie, right? And almost like on some meta stuff. It's almost like a movie about like nostalgia and how you feel about these things that weren't really real feelings. You know what I mean? Like, not that they're not real feelings, but that you're feeling something that never was. You know, and like that obviously hurts everybody. And like also these characters too, because they're kind of like in their mid-30s. I feel like that's like the perfect age range of person to aim a story like this at, right? Because like those people who are a little bit older than us, boy, do they love nostalgia, right? And maybe we'll get there soon one day. But I thought that was like a nice touch as well to make it about people who are like in their 30s, you know? Yeah. I mean, I don't know how old Celine Song is, but I just thought that was an interesting touch and like an interesting overall message about not just movies, but life, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think reaching your 30s is definitely probably one of the first check marks in your life where you look back because, 15 years ago you were 15 and there's decisions maybe in if you're not really happy with the whole trajectory of your life that you might think shaped stuff differently for you and greatly impacted. And I mean, based off the movie's title, Past Lives, there was a past life within his lifetime. He's had 2 different lives, or especially her, where things were supposed to went a different way based off one big decision. The fact of how they got along and how Korean culture works, he does seem like to him it feels like he was robbed of being with her just because it was bigger decisions, like you said, as a kid parent making these decisions. And I feel like she also in a way feels robbed of whatever could have been, and that's always a temptation to go back, but it's also the nostalgia for she really is Korean and she got ripped out of being in Korea, and there never was any question whether she wanted to go to Canada, or obviously there's this whole when she's a kid, I'm going to go to New York and not come back because I want to win Koreans don't win.
She wants to win a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, the first,
then a Pulitzer Prize, and then a Tony.
But it's like anybody that you meet that say the heavy copium is that's what you're gonna say to not seem like, oh no, I wanted to go, or like it's because I'm gonna try to do this, and so it just seems for the longest of time whenever she reconnects with him, it's this past life of mine. It's not like it was the way they keep referring to like Inya, you know what I mean? That you die and then in the next life you might meet each other, but in this instance there was 2 lives in between one lifetime, and I think that's what makes it so melodramatic, is that as the audience you start to understand that, and you do feel like they were both robbed. The what if is really strong, and whenever there was moments to make the what if again a reality, they felt like, see, this is going to work out really well. And even she kind of backtracked because she got scared, and he felt that. And I think there was some resentment. And at the end of the film, when they're talking, it does make it seem like the only reason she was really open to being with Arthur was because she knew that he had a girlfriend too. It seems like even the connection came out of resentment, knowing that even her, she's like, maybe this is just a past life guy from Korea that I keep thinking should be something more, or vice versa. And then you get, when we get to the end again, when they're by themselves again for what might be the last time, or at least feels like it's going to be the last time. And like, what do you say in that moment? There's so much to say, yet it doesn't matter. And I think the way that it ends, with her kind of, like you said, New York as a character, kind of way of framing this walk back to her house. And you could already feel in the way that she's walking. It's like when you walk, when your parents are telling you you're leaving Disneyland and you're a kid, like, damn.
Yep, you nailed the nostalgia nail right on the head.
You know what I mean? Like, for real? it's over. The magic is over. The dream is over. You know, like I have to go back to, I don't know, having not the worst of life, but it's not magical. There's no mystery. There's no what if, and whether. I think Arthur understands that. There's no ambition. There's no. He says to her, "You make my life interesting." Her story with him is interesting. It's maybe what could be a benefiting factor to being a writer, but it's a fantasy, and I think, you know, any person can really become connected to that, and in any certain extent. And I think this is just like a realistic fantasy that you just let die in front of you, and it's like forever. Like you sealed it, and that's. In any other regular situation, like you said, it'd be like, come on, man. It's your internet girlfriend. Get over it. But the way this movie frames it, and the way that you know that she, in any other instance, probably any other guy, she would have just left with him.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up nicely. You said what is there left to be said, right? You just talked for like 5 minutes straight. All right, well, so we'll move on from that and we'll do some quick hits. So join us in the lobby as we are here to discuss what other movies we saw recently. And I want to start with a little movie, a little box office disaster. You may have heard of it. 10 years in the making. The Flash.
The Flush?
The Flush.
Oh man!
Wow. Kind of Kino, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that you're in certain points you're like, wait, I get it, and then it does just these certain things.
This
where you're
could
like,
be my new Speed Racer, but it's also one of the worst movies I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
Ezra Miller. They are, I don't know what to call them. Ezra Miller is a very talented actor, honestly, but also not worth the trouble. You know what I mean? After everything he's been through, highly criticized, highly scrutinized, well-deserved. I kind of just can't believe this movie even still exists with Ezra Miller at the helm. What are you going to do, right? I mean, they could have just did a massive tax write-off. Write it off, Jimmy.
Yeah. Whatever that means.
Whatever that means, right? Write it off. But
people who write things off, no, writing it off.
I personally think it was a bold choice to wait 10 years and to still not finish the movie even when you release it, right?
Oh, my God.
Not to harp on the CGI here, because it's not the only piece of the movie, but hey, film is a visual medium, and you need a story the same way you need visuals. And boy, oh boy, were these some of the worst PS2 graphics I've ever seen in a feature film. They're never beating the PS2 allegations. The Fortnite loading screen really is a Fortnite loading screen.
Pretty bad. It's
What? Hey, Batman's almost good in everything he's in, right?
That's true. That's like even when the movie begins, I sound like pretty Kino.
You turn to me and you're like, Ben Affleck's pretty good at this. And I feel like I was on that revision train even when we did the Batman episodes in 2022, right? I went to bat for the Batman warehouse murder scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you did.
But this proved me right that I was like, he's pretty good as Batman. I'm willing to go back and watch Batman versus Superman, the extended cut, to see. But I also just think that is not a very good movie. I don't think that more of it was really going to solve the problem. So like that extended cut that I'm talking about. But hey, I'm willing to give it a chance. It's funny because you just never know what you have until it's gone, right? Ben Affleck's not Batman anymore. And you're like, damn, kind of missed out. Kind of wish we had that movie where he fought Deathstroke.
Maybe. I mean, I like Pats too much, but okay, maybe.
Hold on.
Maybe.
Why are you acting like if Ben Affleck's Batman came out, the Robert Pattinson one couldn't have come out?
It's two of them, yeah. Yeah, the Warner Brothers do something like that. But they wouldn't. One of them would be out, but not both of them. They don't think like that.
I mean, they don't, but
I mean,
There's also 3 different Jokers running around at the same time.
I mean, there's 2 Batmans in this movie, huh?
yeah, what are you talking about? There's 2 Batmans in this movie.
Yeah, and that kind of that's what I wanted to comment on too. Is like you said, just Batman's always Batman.
It's always good. It works every
even
time.
as cringy as the trailers
There's
had
3
shown.
Batmans in this movie. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, as cringy.
No. There's 4. Adam West is also in this movie,
He does show,
even though he's dead. The dead speak.
Oh my god. Anyways, yeah, but even Michael Keaton's cringe that I thought through the trailer, where it seems very soulless. There's scenes here where I was like, damn, I wish I had more than the 3 movies.
Michael Keaton is the type of actor where, yeah, he has a plate of shit in front of him, but I'm like, man, that boy knows how to sell a plate of shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what movie stars used to be.
Yeah.
And when you see him, I don't know. We were just talking about nostalgia, right? Obviously, I love the Michael Keaton Batman movies. We talked about them ad nauseum when The Batman came out. But it was just like, wow, man, this is what happens when, this is what happens to you. You could be the biggest star in the world one day, and now you look like the Big Lebowski playing Batman. What the fuck is going on, right?
Man.
Like Birdman really came true, right?
Yeah.
But even though there's so much negative surrounding it, his performance is good.
His performance is good, yeah. And I like
And whoever the stunt double was that made him not look 70 goddamn years old, good for you.
You deserve the praise.
I will
of this
say
movie.
Supergirl, sick.
Yeah, I do really
like
Supergirl.
Supergirl. Sasha Calle, I believe is her name, or Callie. I don't know if she does the Latin pronunciation or not.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
But Latina Supergirl, Latino Flash.
I'm in.
No, well,
Oh,
Ezra
yeah.
Miller is they them. So Latin X Flash.
Latin X Flash.
That was the one where I was like, okay, curveball. Was not expecting that in the slightest, right?
This is the first time I feel like, why are you using it like this?
Don't do me like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, oh, this is the way you can be like
Namor being the villain, and then to knock being a piece of shit. Girl,
it wasn't enough,
dude. I literally felt like the Yakuza meme where slam on the table, dude.
Yeah.
And then now Ezra Miller's like Latinx.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Hey, they're not Latino. They're Latinx.
Next, and then is Blue Shadow next? In the Hot Cheeto movie.
I'm so dead. Oh, okay. So enough of the Flash. We didn't do an episode on it, so obviously we don't have that much to say. We enjoyed it. Okay, you win, DC.
Yeah, whatever the fuck
Flamin'
that
Hot.
was.
This is one of the worst fucking movies I've ever seen in my life. Makes the last 2 Halloween movies look like art house cinema.
Pushes glasses up, and it's not even historically accurate.
And look, you tend to have enjoyed these movies about products recently, right? I did see part of Air, and I was like, not finishing this, don't care, right? There's no amount of Ben Affleck, Matt Damon charm that could get me to care about this.
Michael Jordan.
Literally, there's a 30 for 30 on this. Who needs this fucking movie, right? You saw Blackberry recently, which you enjoyed, right?
Blackberry, yeah.
So I was like, hey, let me dive into the movies about products. Let me watch Flamin' Hot.
The #1 movie.
God awful.
God.
Sets back Latin civil rights 30 years, right? Eva Longoria, throw her in the gulag. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly.
I'm sorry. There's just nothing redeemable about this movie. Nothing about it is even true. Like I know when they say, look, inspired by a true story means this shit ain't fucking real at all. Based on a true story means this kind of happened, right? This movie, though, in 2019, they sniffed out this guy's bullshit that he didn't invent hot Cheetos. And the studio knew about it and was like, hey, that don't matter. Let's just still make the story anyways.
It's a good movie.
And, I could handle cringe acting. I can handle the fake Spanglish, right? This is something that irks me in movies so much. I'm not a Spanish speaker, right? But I know words here and there. And I never, ever speak Spanglish. My wife never speaks Spanglish. No one in her family speaks Spanglish. I don't even think that that's like a real thing that anyone does, except when it's out of necessity, right? Where it's like you're speaking English and you don't know the word in English, so you're like, or it's an expression that is only in Spanish, so then you say that, right? Or when you're speaking Spanish and you're, whatever. You're like, how do you say fucking roadcaster? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how Spanglish works. But this is at one of those movies where it's like they only speak English, but like every fourth word is Spanish, just so you know that they're Mexican. His brown face and mustache definitely wasn't getting that across. And as a fellow Mexican, I can definitely say that we're no longer in the past lives decision to leave waters. This is full on the culture that me and you can speak about, and I'm sick of it. It's fucking bullshit, dude. It's so fake, right? And like when I have finally mastered the Spanish language, I can guarantee you I'm not gonna just be throwing it in every fourth word for some, I don't know, some literal Latin spice,
Yeah, I get you.
But the most unforgivable part of this movie is, I shit you not, this former drug dealer turned Cheeto Puff salesman gets the homies and all the previous drug dealers from the hood that he lives in to buy all of the hot Cheetos in the store and to go hand these things out like they're crack. Hey, come back and buy some.
And it worked.
This is the climactic moment that saves Hot Cheetos' ass as a product. Never happened, obviously.
Never happened.
But even that, right? Like, that's where I'm like, this is where representation is wrong. You're like, how he used to deal drugs? Well, now he deals Cheetos. No!
And it's because it's not even, had it happened, whatever. Like you said, had it actually happened, that's like, it's historically accurate. But you chose that you could do anything.
Hey, the cringe was historically accurate. No, it wasn't. The only thing this fool was accurate to was the Latino heat. He said, I lie, I cheat, I steal, dude. I didn't create Cheetos. I lied about the story.
Exactly.
Awful. Awful, awful, awful. Please do not watch this. I'm sorry.
Got it, sir.
I'm sorry. Not just you, the audience, everyone listening. Flaming hot. Just much like Cheetos, too much of it, you're going to be fucking having a hot ass. You don't need to be watching this. But we also saw something really good recently too, right?
Yeah, we did.
A good comedy, a movie that doesn't have to justify its existence. It is an IP. We got a real movie star. It's Jennifer Lawrence's No Hard Feelings.
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean,
speak on it.
No Hard Feelings. Hyped since we saw the trailer. We said the movies are so back. The questionable mid-budget movies from the aughts, right? This
was like a 90s, 2000s movie, if there ever was one.
The kind of movie where you're like, they just have extra money. But then they got Jennifer Lawrence, which I've enjoyed more in the movies I've seen her in. I've enjoyed her in whatever she's in, regardless of the quality of the movie.
Oh, I wonder why. That's
crazy. Yeah, I wonder why. And this movie is kind of just obviously leaning into... She's obviously got exposed. We talked about this 10 years when we were in high school. And I think she's, since then, kind of really leaned into it because she knows there's not really anything to... cover up anymore. But I think this movie, again, she agrees to it, and I think it's kind of more leaning into that stuff, and it only really works because it's something we talk about needing comedies all the time, and something like this comes along and it's original, and the performances here I do really feel they're really good.
Yeah. Andrew Barth Feldman and Jennifer Lawrence, great chemistry. Great performances, two really well-written characters.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a 90s, 2000s ass movies because the plot is like so outlandish and extremely questionable, right?
Yeah.
Almost reminds me of like one of those movies like The Girl Next Door or I'm trying to think of like other 90s, 2000s movies where you're like, this is like a weird-ass plot, but this is like a funny...
One thing I actually was... really thinking about because people have there was a whole other discussion you had told me about that was happening with this movie online, but the obvious prevalent one is like, if this was a guy, it would never get made. Be like, well,
made
Red Rocket. Yeah, like Red Rocket exists, and it's another fucking
Licorice
movie
Pizza
we really like, but it's like they usually don't get any attention, but it has a mid-budget movie. Yeah, a mid-movie budget, which I think is something that doesn't happen a lot. I mean, Even when we talked about Weird Al Yankovic, it was on VOD. You know,
It was
almost
on Roku for free.
Yeah. So like that kind of feels like the kind of attention they give these movies now but for it to be having the pool of Jennifer Lawrence, and obviously people show up for the obvious.
I think this is a testament to her being an actual movie star.
Exactly.
And one of the last few, because everyone I know who has talked about this movie says the Jennifer Lawrence movie. Nobody calls it by its name. Nobody's thinking about this movie other than the fact that she's in it, right? There's no other reason to go see this movie besides the fact that it's being carried by the fact that she's even in it.
Exactly.
It probably only exists because she wanted it to exist. Another movie that I thought would maybe be not similar in terms of like story or anything like that, but just like the type of movie was that movie you watched, Cha-Cha Real Smooth, right? It's kind of got like an Apple TV feel to it, right? It's like the type of movie like Apple TV would make. And it's funny because she was in Causeway too, which is another Apple TV movie. But kind of transitioning out of that, but I wanted to talk about Jennifer Lawrence as a star in general. She's had a very interesting career because like she started off in the Winters, I think it's like the Winter Bone or the Winter's Bone or whatever, right? Like that dramatic thriller movie. But then she gets the Hunger Games, right? Then she gets X-Men and she's like on top of the world, and then unfortunately ties her horse to fucking David O. Russell, but not so unfortunately because Silver Linings Playbook and what's the other one?
The one with Christian Bale, right?
That's American Hustle. I don't think that one is so favorably
regarded,
reviewed, but Silver Linings Playbook is the big one.
Yeah.
So then she has that moment, right? And then she kind of steps away from being an actor for a while. I'm sure there's some few other things here and there, but she steps away from being in the spotlight for a while. And I want to say Causeway and this movie are really her stepping out moment again. And I think that she's handled it really well. I think they're two roles, even though I haven't seen the other movie, that they couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah.
And I just like that she is poking her head back out there and being like, hey, I'm here, I'm around. And like, remember, I'm the kind of person that you go to the movies to see. I mean, she literally said herself, like, I look better 12 feet tall. And that's why this movie is being released in the theater. And
Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's right.
Hey, if you need any more reason to go see this movie, Jennifer Lawrence
12 feet tall
kicks the shit out of people while she's 12 feet tall naked on the beach. So
it's the second best naked scene since Cronenberg's is what is the name of this movie? I forgot, but where
great joke.
Yeah, sorry.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Like complete where Viggo Mortensen is fighting.
Is
like
it
I
Existence?
completely No.
Or no, what's that one? I know what you're talking about. It's the one you really like.
It's because
All right. Well,
sorry.
Anywho,
I had the name of it. Prop. Nope. Went away as soon as I thought about it. But yeah, definitely
Eastern
would recommend
Promises?
watch Eastern Promises. There you go. Sorry guys.
I'm
the joke
remembering
ticket.
movies I've never seen for you.
Eastern Promises.
Another movie I want to talk about, and the only reason I saw this is because my wife has been bugging me for like over a month now.
My wife.
And I thought it was finally a good time to test if my daughter could handle going to the movies.
Mamma mia.
She passed the flying colors. She's a true cinephile. Only one 5-minute freak out. And we went to go see The Little Mermaid, which kind of was like a huge mistake because, well, obviously it's a musical, but she loves music. So I was like, this is going to go really well. Like she'll be, she'll jam out, whatever. It's just so loud.
Yeah.
Because of like the stuff on the ocean. With like Ursula at the end and like the big ship crashing and just everything. I was just like, big mistake, right? I was like, I should have picked a quieter movie than this. But overall, really well. Only had to change our seats once. She had a freak out. We went outside for 5 minutes. What better movie, right, than when you know every single fucking thing that's going to happen to test this out with. So 1 5-minute freak out. We went back in, fell back asleep. Mom and Dad got to enjoy the movie. Great success, right? I don't think I'll be doing it again anytime recently, but that was just like, I felt like I got away with it, It was like we went to Disneyland recently and we lasted 9 hours and she didn't cry once. And I was like, I felt like I got away with it because my mom asked me, she's like, "Would you do that again?" I don't know. It could go to fucking shit next time. It could. How many times did Ocean Gate go see the Titanic before it fucking imploded?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Come on.
So I was wondering how I was gonna work that into the episode.
So we could timestamp this episode, basically.
Little Mermaid, don't have anything really to say. Halle Bailey, great performance.
You're like, water.
Part of your world. She did amazing. It was just as great as it is when I watched the original. The emotional pull that song has. That's just one of the great Disney songs, one of the great American songs. Anyways, shout out Alan Menken for that one. But completely unnecessary movie, to be honest. Who the fuck needed this, right? Go remake a shitty one, dude.
Always with the live action. Always with these live actions.
Other than that, have you seen anything else recently? I mean, I know you saw Asteroid City already, but is there really a point in talking about that?
Not yet, right? I can save it for definitely the episode. It'll get its episode. Well, it'll get its due. It'll get its discourse.
Of course, we have to.
But only movies I've rewatched since then, just to kind of tie up with yours, is I rewatched Training Day just because. Why not? I got the 4K steelbook of it, threw it on, had the chance to show Alvin why people like Denzel so much.
I bet you had a bootleg version of this Once Upon a Time.
I did, yeah. This is one of the movies. Like,
Isn't that funny? The glow up.
Yeah, exactly. And now I got a steel book that I'll watch once.
Now my piece of plastic is in steel.
Yeah, exactly. And Beau is Afraid. I rewatched Beau is Afraid because that fucking movie hasn't left my head since we watched it. And that's why I'm not ready to say Ari Aster has any busts because, goddamn, this movie, I do really like it, man.
He doesn't bust, and that's the problem.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's everything that I've watched. It's been a slow little couple days, but I'm really excited to rewatch Asteroid City. I'm excited for all the stuff that's coming up. Oppenheimer and Barbie couldn't be here sooner.
The only other two movies I watched recently over the break, the unplanned break that we had, was on Father's Day. I wanted to do like a total dad thing, so I was like, leave me alone. I'm sitting on the couch, and I watched 2 music documentaries. I watched Martin Scorsese's documentary about George Harrison, Living in the Material World. Fantastic. Great documentary. But the thing I really enjoyed about it is that I'd never seen Martin Scorsese documentary before. A Martin Scorsese documentary before this one. And his style, at least in this, was like to completely hands off. Like, you would never know he made this unless you went and looked, I mean, obviously his name's in it and stuff, but you would just never guess that this is him. Totally a departure. Maybe you'd think like, oh, it's going to be avant-garde or it's going to be playing with the medium. Whoa, what is a documentary? No. This is like, literally anybody could have made this, but I thought it was so interesting just to see that it was almost like he did a video essay, very good. Listened to some great jams, of course, and then I watched David Bowie's The Last 5 Years, the documentary that came out after his death, and that was obviously,
yeah, I was gonna say,
but not preferable to Moon Age Daydream.
Just visual,
just not the same, like once you've seen Moon Age Daydream and avant-garde, pushing the boundaries. Is this a concert film? Is this a documentary film? The past 5 years couldn't be any more of just your classic standard documentary. It's even got a lot of Bowie himself in it. And yeah, I mean, it was okay. I was obviously sad while I was watching it, but I mean, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's the documentary or concert type of movies are a different type of medium, obviously, but it is cool how there could exist different versions of doing it. And I think that's why like Moon Age Daydream for a figure like David Bowie kind of made like, that's how I think his documentary should be, right?
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps this up. We will be back sooner rather than later, although it is kind of fun to be semi-active, honestly. Hey, gotta keep it mysterious on you fools. You never know when an episode's gonna drop.
Bam.
Bam. Check your YouTube. All right, so like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you next time to discuss Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.